At midnight, I heard my husband whisper, "She still doesn't suspect a thing." He was planning to divorce me and steal $500 million. But I moved it first, and what happened next destroyed his plan forever. Make sure you subscribe and like this video, because what you're about to hear is proof that justice can be won. And don't forget to drop a comment if you believe revenge is best served cold. Let's get into it. My name is Julia Hartman, and for years I believed I was living the kind of life other women envied. I was 38, an editor with a modestly successful career, married to a man who, on the surface, seemed perfect. Daniel Hartman. A financial consultant with an easy smile, a voice like velvet, and the kind of calm presence that made people lean in when he spoke. He had this way of saying my name, soft and deliberate, almost like a promise. "Julia," he would whisper, and I swear sometimes it felt like the sound of safety itself. Our mornings always started the same way. Coffee brewed exactly how I liked it, 1 sugar, no cream. He would kiss my forehead, tousle his tie in the hallway mirror, and then leave for work with a wink. Evenings were quieter. Dinners for 2 by candlelight. Long conversations about books, art, or silly gossip we pretended not to care about. To the outside world, we were the picture of stability, the kind of couple who might have been featured in a lifestyle magazine. Inside that brownstone apartment in Manhattan, I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. But fairy tales, I would soon learn, don't end with happily ever after. Sometimes they shatter in the middle of an ordinary night. It happened close to midnight. I woke up to an empty bed. At first, I thought nothing of it. Daniel often had late-night cravings or would get up to double-check that the doors were locked. I rolled over, half asleep, waiting for the mattress to dip under his weight again. But minutes passed, and then I heard it. His voice. Low, steady, calculated. It was coming from his office, a room just down the hall where he handled his clients and investments. My pulse quickened. Something about his tone made the hairs on the back of my neck rise. I slipped out of bed, the floorboards cool under my feet, and padded softly into the hallway. She still doesn't suspect anything. I froze. Every muscle in my body stiffened as though I'd been plunged into ice water. My breath caught in my throat, shallow and sharp. He was on the phone, but his words hit me like knives. Everything's going as planned. Almost done. The air felt thick, heavy, like I couldn't pull enough oxygen into my lungs. Slowly, silently, I pressed myself against the wall outside his office. A sliver of light spilled out from under the door. I leaned closer, straining to hear. His voice dipped lower, almost a murmur, and I couldn't catch the rest of the conversation. But I didn't need to. She still doesn't suspect anything. That was enough. My heart pounded in my ears like a drum. I backed away, careful not to let the floor creak under my weight. My mind spun in frantic circles, trying to stitch meaning into those words. Who was she? What didn't I suspect? What plan was he almost done with? I slipped back into our bedroom, climbed under the covers, and forced my body into stillness. Moments later, I heard him return. His footsteps were calm, casual. The door clicked shut. The mattress dipped under his weight, and he slid under the blanket, curling an arm around me as if nothing in the world had shifted. He kissed the top of my head. "Sleep well, Jules." I lay there stiff as stone, my eyes wide open in the dark. Sleep was impossible. All I could see was that crack of light under his office door, and all I could hear were those words echoing in my head. She still doesn't suspect anything. That night stretched into forever. I stared at the ceiling until the first blush of dawn slipped through the curtains. My body was heavy with exhaustion, but my mind refused to quiet. Every second, every breath felt like a performance. Pretend to sleep. Pretend to relax. Pretend I wasn't dying inside. When the sun finally rose, I dragged myself into the kitchen like a ghost. Daniel was still asleep upstairs, breathing slow and steady. I stood in front of the coffee maker, staring at it as though it might give me answers. My hands trembled when I reached for my phone. Until that moment, I had never once checked our finances. Daniel handled everything. The bills, the savings, the investments, every last detail. I thought that was what a good wife did. Trust. Trust the man she built a life with. Trust the man who kissed her forehead every morning. But I was beginning to understand something new. Something frightening. Trust could also be the first step towards losing everything. $500 withdrawn. $1,000. $750. $2,000. Line after line of withdrawals, small enough to fly under the radar, but together they painted a chilling picture. Dozens of them over the past 3 months, adding up to more than I could stomach. I gripped the edge of the counter so hard my knuckles whitened. A wave of nausea rolled through me. What is he doing with this money? Why is he hiding it? Checking the account this early? His voice. I flinched, almost dropping the phone. He was standing in the doorway, hair mussed from sleep, his expression casual. But in his eyes, just for a split second, I saw it. The flicker of surprise. "Just being curious," I said quickly, my voice too light, too shaky. "Some of these charges look unfamiliar." He walked into the kitchen, poured himself coffee, and gave me a smile so practiced that it made my stomach turn. "Oh, those? Just a few small investments. Must have forgotten to mention them." He didn't meet my eyes as he said it. Something inside me cracked, but it wasn't anger, not yet. It was something colder, sharper, a kind of clarity I had never known before. I nodded slowly, forcing a small smile, pretending to accept his answer, but inside a shift was happening. For years, I thought of Daniel as my anchor. He was steady where I was emotional, calm where I was restless, but now I saw things differently. That steadiness, the same tone that once comforted me, felt more like calculation. That calmness felt like a mask he wore so well that even I couldn't see beneath it until it was too late. The withdrawals haunted me. $500, $2,000, again and again, small enough not to scream theft, but large enough to whisper deception. I knew I couldn't let it go. I needed more. That night, when he went to take a shower, I sat on the edge of the bed staring at his phone on the nightstand. For years, I never once thought of snooping. I used to laugh at friends who admitted to checking their husbands' messages. I believed trust was the foundation of everything. But that night, my hand moved before my conscience could stop it. The screen lit up, and to my shock, there was no passcode. His messages scrolled beneath my thumb, mostly work chatter, harmless notes, quick reminders. I was starting to think I was paranoid until I saw it. A thread labeled Verona. I clicked. Move her assets before she notices. Verona files will be complete by Friday. Almost done. I read the words again and again, the room spinning. Move her assets. Her. That meant me. Verona files? What was that? A code name? A secret project? My heart slammed in my chest so loud I worried he might hear it over the sound of the shower running. My hand shook as I put the phone back exactly where it had been. I climbed under the covers, forcing myself to lie still. The bathroom door opened, and Daniel stepped out, steam curling behind him. He smiled when he saw me. "You look tired, Jules. Long day?" I smiled faintly, praying he couldn't see how my body trembled beneath the sheets. "Yeah, just tired." He slid into bed beside me, pulling me close. His skin was warm, his scent familiar, but I felt like I was lying next to a stranger. I closed my eyes and counted the seconds until his breathing slowed into sleep. I stared at the ceiling, mind racing, chest aching. He's planning something. He's planning it against me. The next few days, I lived like an actress. At work, I edited manuscripts and smiled at colleagues while my stomach churned with anxiety. At home, I cooked Daniel's favorite meals and listened to him talk about his day, nodding at all the right moments, even laughing when he made a joke. Inside, though, I was unraveling. Every time his phone buzzed, my body tensed. Every time he excused himself to take a call in another room, my heart dropped. He thought he was so careful, but now I noticed it all. The way his jaw tightened when certain names flashed across the screen, the way his eyes flicked away from mine when I asked simple questions. One night at dinner, I decided to test him. "So," I said casually, twirling spaghetti around my fork, "how's work been? Any new projects?" He barely blinked. "Same as always. A few clients shifting accounts. Nothing big." I forced a smile. "That's good. I like that you keep everything stable." He smiled back, that practiced curve of lips that used to melt me, but now chilled me. "That's what I do, Jules. Keep things stable." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Stable. If only he knew how unstable he was making me feel. By the end of the week, my nerves were shredded. I couldn't eat without nausea. Sleep came only in short, restless bursts filled with half-dreams of him whispering in the dark. I needed answers, real answers. So one Saturday morning, when Daniel said he was going to the gym, I followed him. I parked 2 streets away, my heart hammering as I watched him from a distance. He didn't go to the gym. He walked into a sleek office building, briefcase in hand. I sat there for an hour, gripping the steering wheel so tight my fingers hurt. When he finally emerged, he wasn't alone. A tall man in a sharp suit walked beside him, carrying a folder. They shook hands, exchanged a few words I couldn't hear, and parted ways. Daniel looked relaxed, almost smug. When he drove off, I stayed in my car, shaking. Who was that man? What was in that folder? And why was Daniel lying about where he was going? That evening, as we sat on the couch watching television, I studied him out of the corner of my eye. He laughed at the comedy show on the screen, reaching for his beer, looking every bit the husband I once adored, but I saw it differently now. The laughter was hollow. The casualness was performance. I whispered into my glass of water, so quietly he couldn't hear, "I know you're hiding something." By the time another week passed, I knew 2 things for certain. Daniel was hiding something, and I couldn't face it alone. The silence of pretending was eating me alive. My nerves were unraveling like a loose thread that just kept pulling. So, one afternoon, during my lunch break, I called the only person I trusted enough to tell the truth, Naomi. Naomi wasn't just my friend, she was my anchor. We'd met in college, bonded over late-night study sessions and bad coffee. She'd gone on to become a lawyer, sharp as glass, but soft when it came to me. The moment she answered the phone, I nearly broke down. "Naomi," I whispered, ducking into a quiet corner of the office. My hands shook so badly, I had to hold the phone with both hands. "I think Daniel is planning something against me." There was a pause, then her voice, low and steady. "Tell me everything." And I did. I told her about the phone call I overheard, the banking withdrawals, the Verona files, the folder I saw exchanged outside the office building. By the time I finished, tears were streaking down my face. "Julia," she said, her voice firm, "you're moving your personal assets. Verona files? That sounds like a code name for a trust, or worse, a shell account. He's positioning himself to leave you with nothing." I gripped the phone tighter, heart thundering. So I'm not crazy? You're not crazy. You're in danger. That was the moment the fog lifted. My fear hardened into something sharper. Resolve. Over the next few days, Naomi guided me step by step. We spent long evenings at her office, papers spread out across the mahogany table, legal language circling my head like smoke. "Here's what we'll do," she explained, sliding documents towards me. "We'll quietly move your personal savings into a separate account he can't touch. I'll start the paperwork to establish a legal trust in your name only. And Julia," she looked me dead in the eye, "you need to prepare for divorce." The word landed like a punch. Divorce. I had built my life around Daniel. The home we shared, the routines, the little inside jokes, they all seemed to collapse in on themselves. "Are you sure?" I whispered. "Absolutely," Naomi said. "Julia, you can't fight this with love or loyalty. He's already chosen betrayal. If you wait, he'll take everything." I sat there, numb, signing papers with trembling hands. Every stroke of the pen felt like tearing fabric. At home, the performance continued. Daniel carried on as if nothing had changed, smiling over breakfast, kissing my cheek before bed. Sometimes I caught him watching me with that smooth, unreadable expression, and I wondered if he sensed I knew. One night, I watched him from across the dinner table. He was talking about some client, his fork gesturing casually, his wine glass catching the light. To anyone else, he looked normal, but I saw it now. The subtle flickers, the way his eyes darted when I asked questions, the faint tightening of his jaw when I brought up finances. It was like living with a stranger who wore my husband's skin. And then came the moment Naomi had prepared me for. The divorce papers. We served them on a Tuesday morning. I sat on the couch, knees pulled to my chest, as the process server slipped the envelope into Daniel's hands. For the first time in years, his mask cracked. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, ripping the envelope open. His face darkened, the charm stripped away in an instant. "Divorce papers," I said quietly, though my voice trembled. "I know what you're doing, Daniel. The withdrawals, the Verona files, I know you're moving my assets." He froze, eyes narrowing. For a moment, the room was heavy with silence. He laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. "You think you're clever?" he sneered. "You think you can turn this on me? Julia, you don't even know half of it." My heart pounded, but I forced myself to meet his gaze. "Then tell me. Explain why you're lying to me. Explain why you're stealing from me." His mouth twisted. "You were too blind to see the truth. I built this life. I made the money, and now I'm taking what's mine." The words cut deeper than any knife. I stood, hands shaking but voice steady. "You built this life with me. You don't get to erase me from it." For a second, I thought he might explode. His jaw clenched, fists curling at his sides. But then, like a switch, he smoothed his features, plastering on a calm smile. "You're making a mistake, Jules. One you'll regret." The days after, serving Daniel the divorce papers, were some of the longest of my life. If I thought his anger would stay inside the house, I was wrong. He lashed out in ways that cut far deeper than any physical wound. It started with whispers at work. A colleague pulled me aside, concern etched on her face. "Julia, I don't want to alarm you, but Daniel's been saying things about you, that you're unstable, that you've been reckless with money." I laughed weakly, though my stomach dropped. "That's not true." She squeezed my arm. "I know, but people are talking." Within a week, The whispers had grown into a full storm. I overheard two editors in the break room whispering my name. I walked into a meeting to find conversations stop mid-sentence, eyes darting away. Daniel had always been charming, persuasive. Now he was turning that skill into a weapon. At home, his mask of calm never slipped. He would cook dinner, ask about my day, even smile as if nothing was wrong. But beneath that veneer, I saw it, the smug satisfaction of a man who believed he was winning. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. "Why are you doing this?" I demanded across the dinner table. "Why smear me? Haven't you hurt me enough?" He set down his fork, meeting my gaze with cold amusement. "Because you made this war, Julia. And in war, I don't play fair." My blood ran cold. Naomi was furious when I told her. "He's escalating," she said, pacing her office. "If he's spreading lies, we'll counter with truth. I want every financial record, every text, every shred of evidence he's touched." For weeks, my life became a blur of late-night meetings, stacks of paperwork, and endless recounting of details I wished I could forget. Naomi's team combed through everything. They dug into Daniel's accounts, traced his transactions, followed the paper trail like bloodhounds. And then they found it. "Julia," Naomi said one night, her eyes gleaming with a fierce light, "we've got him. He forged documents, transferred funds into offshore accounts, not just yours, some of his clients as well. We can nail him for fraud, embezzlement, and perjury." My breath caught. "Are you serious?" "Deadly serious." I stared at the stack of papers she slid toward me. My name, his signature, his lies, black and white on the page. For the first time in months, a flicker of hope pierced through my fear. The trial came like a storm. The courtroom was cold, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones. I sat at the plaintiff's table beside Naomi, hands folded tightly in my lap, trying to ignore the way my heart raced. Across from me, Daniel sat with his lawyer, looking polished and confident, as if he had already won. When he caught my eye, he smirked. That same smirk I once thought was charming now felt like a knife twisted in my chest. The proceedings began. His lawyer painted him as the victim of a paranoid, bitter wife. They called me emotional, unstable, even vengeful. My face burned with humiliation, but Naomi whispered, "Hold on, let him hang himself." Then it was our turn. Naomi rose, sharp and commanding, her voice cutting through the air like steel. She presented the evidence, one piece at a time. Emails, bank transfers, forged documents. With every exhibit, Daniel's confidence wavered. His smirk faltered. His lawyers stammered. The moment that sealed it came when Naomi called the forensic accountant to the stand. With calm authority, he explained how Daniel had siphoned money through false trusts, how he had falsified my signature, how he tried to erase the trail, but failed. By the time Naomi finished, the courtroom was electric. I could feel the shift, like the tide turning. Daniel's mask cracked completely when the judge looked at him over the rim of her glasses and said, "Mr. Hayes, this evidence is damning. You will answer for these crimes." For the first time, Daniel looked small. The verdict came swiftly. Daniel was found guilty of fraud and ordered to repay the funds he had stolen. The divorce was granted in my favor, assets protected by the trust Naomi had built. His reputation, the charm, the success, the carefully crafted image crumbled as ash. As the gavel struck, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. Not joy, not triumph, just the release of a weight I'd been carrying for too long. But the story wasn't over. Outside the courthouse, as reporters swarmed and cameras flashed, Daniel pushed through the crowd to face me, his eyes burning with rage, his voice a venomous hiss. "You think you've won. This isn't over, Julia." For the first time in months, I smiled, not with fear, but with strength. "Oh, Daniel," I said softly, leaning close enough that only he could hear. "It's over. And you lost." The look on his face, shocked, furious, powerless, was the final piece of justice I needed. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe, like, and leave your thoughts below.